Amazing Hell's Angels rescue a lost girl. What happens next will transform the entire community. Sarah wiped spilled coffee off the counter, her mind racing with exhaustion and worries etched on her face. She could hardly remember the last time she felt truly relaxed. Each day at the diner was a blur of orders, complaints, and the clinking of silverware that droned in her ears, a constant reminder of her unfulfilled dreams. As the sole provider for 12-year-old Lily, every shift felt like a sprint, and the mounting bills loomed over her like dark clouds threatening rain. The local factories had closed one after another, and all that was left were shadows of lost opportunities. "Mom, I'm heading to school," Lily called cheerfully, breaking through Sarah's thoughts. Just like that, the weight of her life collided with the lightness of her daughter's innocence. Sarah looked up, forcing a smile. She held on to hopes of college, perhaps a stable job, and the fleeting dream of escaping this town. But that dream often felt more like a fantasy, as tangible as the greasy floors she desperately scrubbed. "Be careful, honey," Sarah shouted, heart sinking as she watched Lily step outside, a slight spring in her daughter's stride. But the moment felt heavy, like time itself was winding down. The doubt echoed louder with every passing second. What if? She shook her head as a shiver ran down her spine. Those thoughts had no place here. Around noon, a chilling panic tore through the diner when the school called. Lily hadn't made it. Sarah's heart dropped into her stomach, sending her racing for the door. The town spun around her as she frantically searched ice-cold corners and familiar streets, desperation clawing at her throat. As the diner emptied, the weight of loneliness hung in the air. An empty table, an abandoned meal left forgotten on the counter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's breath came in short gasps as she joined the whispers of worry and fear that rose among the townsfolk. This community was tightly knit, but the fabric felt frayed at its edges, unraveling with each moment spent searching. Doubt crept in. Had someone taken her? Questions flashed through her mind like lightning bolts. Sarah clenched her fists, shaking her head violently as if willing the thoughts away. Then, a roar of engines shattered the evening calm, and the notorious Hell's Angels motorcycle gang rallied together, brawn and leather intimidating. Their presence sent icy fingers of dread creeping through her. They were the undesirable, her carefully built perceptions threatening to implode. But now, they were her only hope, and inexplicably, they began searching alongside her, a strange pull of loyalty igniting amidst her chaos. But as they dug deeper, revelations clawed at the town's facade. There were secrets buried in the soil, brutal truths infecting the very community she loved and held in contempt. When they finally found Lily, head hanging low, bruises blooming like dark flowers across her skin, Sarah's heart shattered. What would she do with the knowledge that the monster wore the face of a respected family? Suddenly, the lines blurred. Who were the real disloyal? Who defined family? As her pulse quickened, Sarah understood she was at a crossroads. Trust was a fragile thread, and it could snap just when she needed to cling to it most. The weight of the town's duplicity pressed against her chest as thoughts collided with fear. Ally or enemy? And as they drew closer to the truth, a chilling betrayal awaited, lurking among the shadows. Sarah felt as if the air around her had thickened, each breath a reminder of the reality she had just witnessed. Her heart raced, and her mind teetered between disbelief and fury. The bruises on Lily's small frame were like daggers, each one a testimony to a breach of trust so cavernous it shook the ground beneath her. What had happened? As she led Lily away from the chaos, her protective instinct surged, rendering her a fierce mother lion. But the shadows cast by the town loomed larger than ever, each familiar face morphing into a potential assailant. Secrets tucked away in pristine homes now haunted her with every step. Where do I go from here? Sarah's thoughts spiraled. One moment defined her entire existence. Could she really expose the truth without unraveling her family's world? She couldn't afford to become the villain in her own story. But to let it lie. That was a certainty she couldn't embrace. Back at the diner, the world continued without her. Regulars glanced over, concern evident but unspoken. Sarah attempted a smile, but it felt as brittle as glass, ready to shatter. She busied herself in the rush of cups and plates but found her actions hollow, each clink only echoing the turmoil within her. Then, a moment of clarity pierced through the fog. She thought of the other women in town who had faced their demons head-on. The resilient ones who hadn't let fear dictate their choices. In that instant, Sarah realized it was her moment to rise. Not just for Lily, but for herself. Could she be one of those women? The first step toward her transformation emerged: the need for information. The gathering of townspeople only intensified the thick air of suspicion. They had to know. Maybe the Hell's Angels were not just misguided, perhaps they could ignite a change. If they had unearthed Lily's plight, could they help her expose the truth about the predator cloaked in respectability? With every restless shift at the diner, Sarah pondered her plan. A clandestine meeting with the motorcycle gang tumbled into her thoughts, an unlikely strategy, but her gut churned with a haunting sense of urgency. She had to ask them what they knew about the undercurrents of danger lurking in the town. The Hell's Angels seemed more attuned to this place's fevered whispers than any of the town's supposed guardians. "What are you working on, Sarah?" An old man named Richard asked, sensing something had unsettled her routine. "Nothing I can't handle, Richard," she replied, her voice steadier than her heart felt. This was her fight, and no one needed to know the details yet. Determined, she leaned on each thought that flicked through her mind like a film reel. The confrontation ahead wouldn't only require courage, it would demand clarity of purpose. It was time to confront her own fears. The protection of her daughter was the top priority, but confronting the dark underbelly of the town was growing equally as critical. That night, as she lay in bed listening to Lily breathe softly nearby, Sarah committed herself to her course. Whatever lay ahead, she wouldn't be alone. Sparks of resilience ignited within her. Perhaps it was time to wield her newfound strength not just for survival, but to reclaim what had been taken from her. Soon, she would have to reach out to the Hell's Angels for an alliance, a consequence she had not anticipated, but one she could no longer ignore. The time had come to face the truth, and with it, a reckoning would unfold that would redefine their lives and open the door to healing or destruction. But there remained one nagging question: could the very ones she feared enable her to reclaim the future? As anticipation rippled through her, she steeled herself for the uncertainty that loomed just beyond the horizon. The diner glowed softly in the early morning light, casting long shadows on the floor. Sarah served her regular customers mechanically, her mind miles away. Each smile felt rehearsed, each polite conversation a mask, hiding the turmoil churning inside her. Yet, with every interaction, a sense of purpose coalesced in her thoughts. Today would be the day she set her plan in motion. She shouldered the weight of her resolve as she wiped the counter, her thoughts racing ahead to the meeting she had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Reaching out to the Hell's Angels felt like standing at the edge of a precipice. Where would this plunge lead? She had never anticipated finding herself navigating the choppy waters of shady alliances. With fear and anger feeding her determination, the diner emptied out, and she took a quiet moment to breathe. Sarah was no longer the same woman who had served burgers and coffee in her quaint town. The image of Lily's bruises flickered in her mind, sharpening her focus. This wasn't just about her daughter, it was a battle for the safety of the entire community overshadowed by its unspoken truths. Today she would confront fear personified, and connect with the very people she had only seen through the lens of danger. As her shift ended, she grabbed her jacket and slung her purse over her shoulder with newfound vigor. The sun glared down, but it illuminated a path she had yet to explore. She made her way toward the outskirts of town, her heart thumping with trepidation yet steadied by purpose. Before she could second-guess herself, She found herself outside the rickety building that served as the Hell's Angels headquarters. The sounds inside, the revving of bikes, laughter mixed with the clink of bottles, were at odds with the unease knotting in her stomach. Gathering her courage, she pushed open the door, the creak of the hinges signaling her arrival. The room fell silent, and a dozen pairs of eyes turned her way, suspicion mingling with curiosity. Sarah felt exposed yet resolute, the weight of her intention palpable in the air. Leaning against the doorframe, she scanned the scene: leather jackets, confident demeanors, all so different from the control she had animatedly maintained in her daily life as a mother and waitress. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped further inside, allowing the door to close behind her with a finality that startled her. "I need to talk to someone," she declared, her voice steady despite the tumult inside. The challenge in her tone surprised even her. "About what?" A voice boomed from the back, cutting through the charged atmosphere. It was a tall man with a tattooed arm and an air of authority that demanded attention. She recalled seeing him at the diner occasionally and had shied away from engaging him. Now, that familiarity felt like both a comfort and a curse. "About Lily," she replied, holding the gaze of the man, steeling herself against the daunting task ahead. The mention of her daughter seemed to shift the mood, and the man leaned in closer. "You know something, don't you?" "I know she's in danger," Sarah shot back, forcing herself to maintain eye contact. As the weight of her vulnerability hung in the air, she felt the ground beneath her shifting, a seismic rift separating the woman she had been from the fierce advocate for her daughter that she was becoming. As hesitant murmurs filled the room, Sarah made her next move. She had stepped into a world where alliances could save lives or plunge her deeper into chaos. She couldn't predict the outcome, but as uncertainty threatened to overwhelm her, a glimmer of empowerment ignited within. "Do you want to help?" she said, the words tumbling from her lips, clumsy but transformative. The eyes around her watched, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue lining their expressions. The air was thick with possibility as Sarah realized this was more than just an inquiry, it was an invitation to connect, to forge a path she had never envisioned. The moment she had dreaded was here, and there was no turning back. But as she prepared to unveil the details that could bind their fates, a nagging thought picked at the edges of her resolve. Could these renegades truly be trusted to protect Lily, or would their dark reputation overshadow her desperate need for help? With that question looming, she braced herself for the next chapter of her life, a reckoning that could either weave a safety net or ensnare them all in a darker fate. The silence in the bar stretched, thick and palpable, as Sarah stood before the gang members, their eyes a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. She felt the tension in the air, her heart galloping like a wild horse. This was no longer the shy waitress from the diner, this was a woman on a mission, and she could taste her own desperation. "Are you serious?" asked the tattooed man, raising an eyebrow, his skepticism evident. "You think we're gonna help you just like that?" "No," Sarah said, shaking her head, determined to assert herself. "I'm not asking for favors. I'm here because I believe you know more about what's going on than you're letting on. My daughter is in danger, and I need your help to get her back." His laughter echoed her bravado back to her, mixed with a condescending edge. "And what makes you think we care about some little girl?" The challenge hung in the air, and she refused to back down. "Because you want to be more than just what they say you are. There's a chance for you to show that there's more to your lives than fear and violence. I know you can do the right thing." The audacity of her statement sent a ripple through the group. A massive biker with dark, piercing eyes snorted, "You think you can just stroll in here and lecture us about doing the right thing? You have no clue what we're about." "I might not know everything," she admitted, her voice stronger than she felt, "but I know what it's like to fight for someone you love. I may not have the muscles or the experience, but I came here risking everything because I believe you're capable of good. You can make a difference." For a brief moment, doubt twisted in her gut. What if her plea fell flat? Would they dismiss her completely, or worse, laugh her out? Then she remembered Lily's face and the tenderness in her daughter's laugh, and the fire ignited anew. The tattooed man stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as though he were processing a challenging equation. "What do you bring to the table? What do we get out of this?" I'm not sure right now, but I can offer you something more than a transaction. I can connect your actions to a purpose that matters, that elevates you beyond this life you've been living. Helping me can change the narrative." How profound her words felt at that moment. It was a bet on herself. She might not know their world, but she knew hers was defined by love and sacrifice. As the murmurs grew louder among them, the giant biker paused, crossing his massive arms. Sarah could see the gears turning in his mind, the conflict brewing beneath his hardened exterior. Maybe he hadn't been prepared for a mother's resolve. "You're nuts," he finally said, but there was a hint of respect in his tone. "But maybe that's what we need around here, a little crazy." The rest of the gang exchanged glances, weighing her words. Slowly, the weight shifted. "Okay, we'll listen. But if we're gonna do this, you better tell us everything." As Sarah began detailing the limited information she had, her pulse quickened. She was treading on unstable ground, but every revelation felt like a building block for the coalition she never imagined forming. Moreover, the way they listened, leaning forward, drawn in, struck a potent chord within her. Did this unexpected alliance have the power to turn them around? Could these outlaws discover a sense of honor amidst the chaos? By the time she finished recounting the last details of the danger encroaching upon Lily, the atmosphere had shifted. Some gang members nodded, a feeling of purpose emerging where skepticism had previously reigned. "All right, we're in," the tattooed man declared, and a wave of relief washed over Sarah. It was a fragile pact, sketchy at best, but it felt like a first step into a dangerous yet necessary new reality. Yet, even in her triumph, doubt seeped in. What if she had just signed a contract with chaos? Was she truly prepared for the ruthless world she was stepping into? The lines between safety and danger blurred in her mind, leaving her uncertain of what the future held. As the motorcycles roared to life around her, Sarah felt a surge of exhilaration intertwining with fear. The decision to ally herself with the Hell's Angels had marked a profound turning point. She was now locked into a journey that could redefine them all. The stakes had escalated beyond the safety of their community, reaching depths Sarah had never envisioned. Standing beside the notorious gang, she realized that the fight for Lily was not just a son's darkness, it was also about redefining what love and loyalty could mean. In that moment of choice, just as her fate began to unfold, another lurking shadow trembled at the edge of her mind. Who were the true threats? And would unveiling one dark secret lead to the discovery of another? With those questions lingering ominously, she mounted the bike beside the man whose presence felt like both a shield and a storm. Her understanding of the world would never be the same again, and neither would the lives they were about to change. As the roar of the engines vibrated through her bones, an urgent pulse surged within Sarah. She clutched the handgrips of the motorcycle, barely managing to steady her breath. There was power beneath her, a raw force that promised freedom, yet she felt neither completely liberated nor in control. The gang members, primal and fierce, cut through the night like warriors of old, ready to confront the unknown. She stole glances at their coarse faces, each scar and tattoo telling stories of battles waged and lost. They seemed so far removed from the cozy diner where she had spent countless shifts, but that world now felt distant, almost naive. As the wind whipped through her hair, Sarah realized that her life was as much at stake as Lily's. Was she prepared to face the inevitable consequences of this alliance? Her instincts told her she was stepping onto a battlefield, one where the stakes were higher than any she'd met before. They rode toward the outskirts of town, leaving behind the familiar and plunging deeper into a realm that smelled of smoke, leather, and something more sinister. There weren't just people here, there were connections, a web of loyalties and fears. It was disorienting, yet something about it called to her a resonance of her resolve. The tattooed man, who had claimed his skepticism only hours earlier, led her to a desolate warehouse. As they pulled to a halt, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation and tension. Sarah dismounted, her legs unsteady, caught between doubt and fierce determination. She felt the eyes of the gang members upon her, assessing and weighing her worth. "What's the plan?" she asked as she caught her breath, determined not to appear weak. One of the riders, a wiry man with a shock of wild hair, stepped forward. "We need intel. You've got connections, use them." The sooner we track down your daughter, the better. Panic surged in her chest. She had always been a solitary figure, unwilling to involve others in her struggles. But this was different. This was about unearthing the shadows that threatened her child. Taking a deep breath, she realized she had to adapt to the unexpected circumstances this new reality sought to strip away any apprehensions she might have held on to. "Okay," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I have a few contacts. We can try the biker community, someone might know something." "Good start," the tattooed man urged, the flicker of a grin breaking his hardened facade. During the ride back into town, she strategized how to navigate her network. Using her phone, she began texting familiar faces, searching for any whispers of Lily's whereabouts. With each ping of a response, a knot formed in her stomach. Would they accept her calls for help, knowing she was entwined with the gang? Would they still see her as just a waitress or support her crusade? The fervor to find Lily unleashed a hidden side of herself, the assertive, tenacious spirit she didn't know existed. This journey transformed her. It wasn't merely an expedition to reclaim her daughter, it was an awakening. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an ominous message. A number she didn't recognize, a contact she never saved. Her pulse quickened as she read the text, "I know where she is. But you'll have to come alone." A chill ran through her, mingling with excitement and fear. She stood on the precipice of a decision that could shatter everything or lead toward freedom. "They know where she is," she murmured, disbelief widening her eyes. In that moment, her resolve crystallized. It was one thing to fight with the gang by her side, it was another to confront the lurking shadows on her own. What kind of mother would she be if she didn't take the risk? Sarah felt a surge of power coursing through her veins. This was her battle to win, her daughter's future at stake. "What's that, Sarah?" the tattooed man asked, tilting his head in curiosity as he noted her face fall. "They know where Lily is," she said, her heart pounding. "I have to go." A decision that could change everything loomed ahead, and as the gravity of the moment sunk in, Sarah realized, this would either break her or forge her into something wholly new. The motorcycle's engine growled in agreement, a reminder of the precarious journey ahead. She was on the cusp of a confrontation, a revelation that could define not just her path, but the very framework of everything she understood about loyalty, love, and sacrifice. As shadows danced around her, she felt the depth of the night call to her. Would she face the darkness alone, or could she bring the newfound strength of the gang along to back her up when it counted? The answers were swirling into the night, waiting to unveil themselves at the next stop on this perilous journey. Standing at the threshold of uncertainty, Sarah felt the heavy weight of the choice before her. The motorcycles hummed a low, menacing melody, each vibration resonating with the chaos within her. Her instincts screamed for caution. Trusting the gang was one thing, wandering into the unknown, alone, was another. Yet the thought of Lily, lost and vulnerable, snuffed out the flicker of fear. As she turned to the tattooed man, desperation painted her voice. "I need to do this. If I don't take the lead now, I might lose her forever." He studied her carefully, his expression shifting as if weighing the risk of letting her venture alone against the necessity of her fierce resolve. "You're sure about this?" "More than anything," she replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Fine. But you aren't prepared for what you may find. Remember, not everyone plays fair here. There are layers to this world you might not be ready to peel back." The warning slithered beneath her skin, igniting a twinge of doubt, but she quelled it. Maybe this was her pathway to reclaiming the woman she had long ignored within herself, the mother willing to fight tooth and nail. The decision solidified, she felt determined to shield her daughter even if it meant standing alone against the world. As she rode off, the wind tugged mercilessly at her resolve, but within that rush, Sarah could feel her heart beating with a new purpose. Each minute whizzed by, filling her with a sense of urgency combined with burgeoning courage. Only when she pulled up to the designated meeting place, a rundown diner on the outskirts, alleyways slick with rain, did her mind clear from manic thoughts. Searching the dim lighting, she spotted a figure slouched at a booth. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled, a survivalist alertness cresting through her senses. She knew that apprehension was a good thing, it would guide her through whatever shadow awaited. As she approached, she noted the stranger, a man dressed in black, eyes hidden beneath a worn cap, a cigarette dangling from his lips like an ultimatum. "You came alone," he said, voice gravelly. It was a statement cloaked in a hint of surprise. "I need to know where my daughter is," Sarah demanded, pouring every ounce of authority she could muster into her voice. "Now." "I've got information," he drawled, taking a languid puff, "but information costs. What are you willing to bargain?" Foreboding and desperation danced together in her gut. She wasn't prepared to barter with her safety nor her dignity. Her instincts insisted that her daughter's safety was enough. "Just tell me where she is." He chuckled softly, cool and insufferable. "What if I told you she's in greater danger than you think? What will you do then? You've got to think this through, lady." What danger lurked in the shadows? With every word he spoke, a tightness wrapped around her resolve. "To protect her, I'll do whatever it takes. If that means walking into hell, then so be it." His gaze sharpened, measuring her sincerity. She met his stare with fierce composure, feeling the flicker of her defiance grow brighter. There was no denying the journey she had undertaken was more than a desperate search, it was a fundamental reshaping of everything she believed about herself. "Well," the man replied slowly, "if you're in, you need to prove it." "What do you mean?" She countered, her voice steady, though unease seeped in. "You'll have to confront the ones in power. They've got your daughter, and they won't just hand her over. You want her back, you'll have to risk everything to get her," he said, the implications sinking in like a weight of lead. A rush of adrenaline shot through her, mingling determination with dread. The biker gang had warned her about the power dynamics in this world, and now it was infuriatingly clear that freedom could only be won through conflict. Was she ready to face the heart of an evil that had ensnared her child? With each second ticking closer to the confrontation, the room around her faded away. The clarity of purpose surged within her, intense and unforgiving. The choice had morphed from simple pursuit into a chaotic orchestration of risk. "Tell me what I need to do," she urged, every fiber of her being aligned to the task at hand. But as the man leaned closer, the heavy shroud of uncertainty enveloped her once more. "Welcome to the real fight, Sarah," he said ominously, and for the first time, she understood that the shadows she faced were not simply external, they were tearing at the very fabric of who she had believed herself to be, what was waiting for her on the other side of revelation. In that moment, the promise of an unimaginable challenge loomed ahead. Would she be forged anew, or would the flames consume her entirely? What she could be, the woman she had buried beneath years of routine and resignation, surged within her like a phoenix ready to take flight. But the road she was about to tread felt colder than any asphalt beneath her tires. The gravity of her commitments fell heavy on her shoulders, the pull of motherhood a powerful anchor. Yet in this cacophony of conflict, Sarah sensed an ember of latent strength, one she had long overlooked. "Prove it," the man said, his voice a rasp that urged her into the darkness. This was not merely a test of her willingness, it was a summation of all her risks put into palpable perspective. As his words sank in, Sarah's resolve wavered for a fraction. There was a vast difference between her fierce declaration of protection and the real actions required to embody that pledge. Determination flooded her. "What do I need to do?" she demanded again, her tone edging on a growl. The mix of fear and defiance sparked a clarity she hadn't expected to find amid the haze of potential chaos. That he pulled out a worn piece of paper, sliding it across the table. "This is a map to their hideout. You'll need to enter quietly and gather intel first. If you lash out too soon, you'll endanger both yourself and your daughter." Her heart skipped. Stepping into enemy territory required not just courage but strategy. It was one thing to declare willingness, it was another to execute thoughtfully and precisely. She examined the map, a stark representation of the intrusions ahead. Fear prickled at her skin, the stakes had never felt higher. "Why would you help me?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Because even I can see the drive in you. And maybe I have my own agenda, he replied cryptically, the smoke curling from his cigarette framing his enigmatic expression. There was a mythic aura about him, a brush with rebellious history that made her both wary and oddly interested. Does that mean I can trust you? Trust? That's a luxury, lady. Just remember this, no matter how sharp you are, you're stepping onto the chessboard unprepared. Be ready to pivot. With each word, awareness dawned. This was not just about rescuing Lily, it was a chance for Sarah to reclaim parts of herself she thought lost. Every decision moving forward would not just affect her daughter's fate but reshape the contours of her own identity. The fear that had so long held her back from action now flickered, kindled by the urgency to forge a new destiny. Calculating thoughts churned through her. Gathering intel meant patience, risk, and deception of her own. It required the mastery of both understanding the enemy and her own capabilities, skills she had neglected but now recognized as integral to the fight ahead. The realm lurking beneath the surface of everyday life was one she had feared but felt increasingly drawn to explore. Do you have any weapons? She inquired, any numbing sensation of uncertainty replaced by a keen focus. The moment demanded she channel every ounce of resolve. The man's gaze darkened slightly. Not just weapons, get ready for psychological warfare. These are not ordinary men. They'll try to undermine your mind long before they attempt to harm you physically. Images of her daughter flashed in her mind, their shared laughter, the warmth of small moments. It there, in that nostalgic space, ignited a furious light within her. I'll take everything I can get. He nodded slowly, still assessing her. Remember, confronting them means confronting yourself. The shadows here will reveal things about you that you've chosen to ignore for too long. The tightness in her throat signaled a burst of realization. Confronting these men was, in part, about confronting her own limitations. Did she have the capacity to push beyond what she thought she was? A storm of instinct and redefined purpose swirled inside her. Where do I find them? She pressed, anxious to break the grip of the moment, resolve mounting like a tide. They frequent Reaver's Alley, it's where they huddle in packs, but the real players won't be there. You'll need to gather your courage and paint a clearer picture once you're inside. She absorbed his words, each sentence weighing heavier than the last. The way ahead twisted ominously, a labyrinth filled with twists threatening to ensnare her at any moment. Yet the thought of her freedom, snatching it back from the clutches of the lost life she had endured, quickened her resolve. As she rose, determination stood etched in her posture. Thank you, she said, unsure if gratitude was warranted. She had no illusion about complicity in her venture, she was a desperate woman clutching at the strands of hope. Just remember, he warned again, the real challenge begins the moment you think you have everything figured out. Sarah turned, pushing down the twinges of doubt. She was no longer just pursuing the shadow of a daughter, she was pursuing the resurrection of a fierce, determined woman who could navigate any darkness. The path behind her may have vanished, but ahead, a flicker of light illuminated the unknown. She escaped the confines of the diner, her heart racing faster than the engine of her motorcycle. Would she discover a version of herself capable of executing the improbable? Would the fight reveal her latent strength? The thoughts clashed within her mind as she sped down the empty road, the impending confrontation a storm on the horizon. Ready or not, she was about to change the game, but could she outsmart the demons lining the path ahead? The wind whipped through Sarah's hair as she navigated the familiar roads, the places that marked mundane errands and routine. But tonight, those streets felt different, electric with a charged purpose. Every curve in the asphalt was a challenge laid before her, each shadow cast by the streetlights a reminder of the emerging strength nestled within her. Reaver's Alley loomed ahead, an unfamiliar territory that echoed with danger. Her heart raced as doubt entwined itself with determination. This was no longer just about rescuing her daughter, it was about unearthing the woman who had remained dormant for far too long. This reckoning was personal, a moment to reclaim her life from an oppressive routine. She parked her motorcycle at the mouth of the alley, allowing a moment of stillness to wash over her. The alley was strewn with graffiti and litter, a raw snapshot of desperation intermingled with defiance. Steeling herself against the unease, she recalled the man's warning about psychological warfare. The enemy would exploit her fears. She needed to enter fully aware of her own vulnerabilities. Adjusting her leather jacket, she felt the weight of the concealed objects hidden within tools of her stealth. The bitterness of anger swirled inside her but was softened by a controlled clarity. As she took her first step into the darkness, she focused on the dual intentions of her mission, to save Lily and unveil the fierce woman capable of such heroism. The alley was quiet, an incongruent calm shrouded in anticipation. Shadows danced along the walls, morphing like specters of her past fears and failures. Every corner turned might reveal the unknown, but the pulse of adrenaline coursing through her veins urged her forward. She was no longer bound by timidity. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Figures huddled deeper in the dimness, the hushed exchange of muffled words translating into her heartbeat. They exuded an aura of menace, but Sarah forced herself to believe that they were as fragile as their facade suggested. Their confidence felt misplaced. She would be the wild card in their game. Stepping closer, she crouched behind a dilapidated dumpster, the cold metal grounding her. Keeping her breathing steady, Sarah strained to catch snippets of conversation that floated into the void. Plans, names, numbers, vital fragments she needed to assemble a clearer map of the operational psyche she aimed to dismantle. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, broke away from the group. Sarah's instincts took over, prompting her to capitalize on the opportunity. As he rounded the corner, she slid out from her precarious hiding spot, adopting a purposeful gait. She needed to play a role, to blend in with the very world she was determined to disrupt. "Hey, you lost?" she offered, masking the tremor in her voice with casual bravado. He paused, arching an eyebrow, his demeanor slightly shifting as surprise registered. "You looking for trouble?" he retorted, scanning her frame, assessing her worth. "Depends on how bad you want it," she shot back, adrenaline threading her words with a challenge. For the first time in years, the exchange felt invigorating rather than threatening. He chuckled, appearing calmed by her defiance. "What's your game?" "Just trying to make connections. Heard you guys are the ones who get things done around here." His eyes narrowed, gauging her intent, but curiosity flickered in them. She had thrown the bait, hoping to bait a response that would yield information. "Come on, then," he shrugged, gesturing for her to follow him. "Let's see if you've got the guts." As Sarah followed, each step felt momentous. The fear that once held her hostage was thinning, transformed by the sense of agency flowing through her. The discomfort she wrestled with morphed into exhilarating anticipation, a series of tests designed to challenge her new resolve. With each passing moment, she prepared herself not just to execute her plan but also to confront the shadows residing within her, those limiting beliefs that had suffocated her spirit for far too long. Sarah felt herself becoming more than just a desperate woman. She was a force to be reckoned with, ready to challenge whatever lay ahead. The men around her chattered, unaware that the true battle lurked not only outside their walls but within her spirit, a silent reckoning built on strength, resolve, and a fierce love for her daughter. Would she continue to navigate this dangerous path with the same boldness, unraveling her own layers while gathering the information she desperately needed? As she neared their inner sanctum, Sarah realized that this was only the beginning, a threshold leading her to a confrontation with her deepest fears and the very essence of who she could ultimately become. She was on the precipice of transformation, but could she sustain her momentum when faced with the true nature of the enemy? The air thickened as Sarah followed the man deeper into the alley, the shadows wrapping around her like a tightening noose. The sounds of the street faded, replaced by an echo of footsteps and muffled conversations. Her senses sharpened, awareness flooding through her as she embraced the challenge ahead. This was a litmus test for her resolve, a chance to wield the courage that had remained dormant for years. They arrived at a secluded spot where the alley branched into a wider area, the boundary concealed by darkened corners and the smell of dampness. The atmosphere shifted, electric and charged. She was aware that now was the moment to observe, to uncover not just information, but also aspects of herself that she had buried long ago. "Welcome to the real world," the man said, resting against a graffiti-adorned wall, his posture relaxed. The nonchalance contrasted sharply with the urgency racing in her veins. She scanned the small cluster of men around them, each of them gnarled and hardened from experiences she could only imagine. They roped their bravado into casual conversation, discussing illicit dealings as if they were merely fighting over a sports score. Sarah's pulse quickened. She needed to engage. "So, what's the scoop? I'm sure you're not just hanging out here for the ambience." He turned to face her, the curiosity in his eyes now paired with a hint of suspicion. "You seem too clean for this scene. What's your angle?" The question rattled her momentarily. "I'm looking for a girl," she stated more firmly than intended. "I heard you may know a thing or two." A stir rippled through the group, the name Lily hung in the air like an unspoken truth. Each man exchanged glances, a nonverbal challenge fluttering among them. Sarah's stomach churned. Was it really so simple that her desperation could slip out so carelessly? One of the men, shorter and wiry, stepped closer. "Why should we help you?" he asked, his tone sharp. "There's no point getting involved with someone who doesn't belong here." Clarifying her intentions was crucial. "Because I'm not asking for a charity. I can do things that you might need." Confidence had to radiate from her as much as fear clung to her heart. "And what exactly do you think you can do?" he challenged, probing deeper, a test of her mettle. Sarah inhaled sharply, the moment crystallizing into clarity. If she was to walk this precarious tightrope, she needed to project an image of capability rather than desperation. "I'm resourceful. I can gather intel, make connections. I know things, see things others overlook." Proving her worth was imperative. She would weave this narrative into something actionable. Striking a balance between vulnerability and strength was her way forward. "But sometimes," she continued, "you need someone outside your circle." Fresh eyes. The curiosity returned to the wiry man's gaze. They all appeared intrigued now, debating internally whether the risk of accepting her was worth it. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears as seconds stretched out. The stillness became a catalyst for both trepidation and resolve. Finally, the tall man let out a laugh, breaking the tension that had coiled tightly around them. "You got guts, I'll give you that." He looked around, then fixed his eyes back on Sarah. "All right. You say you want in, prove it. We've got a job that might need your special touch." Relief washed over her, swiftly replaced by the embers of apprehension. It wasn't enough to just be accepted, she had to make sure she could execute. Within this world, where danger reigns supreme and trust is a currency few afford, any misstep could lead to disaster. "Consider this your initiation," he added, a weight to his words that suggested no turning back. The game had shifted, and with it, Sarah felt the stakes rise like a wildfire. Each choice would define not just her mission to rescue Lily but also her metamorphosis from a reluctant participant to a woman who commanded her destiny. As they outlined the mission, Sarah absorbed every detail, her mind racing with possibilities and consequences. Did she have the skills necessary to navigate the unknown? Could she reaffirm her identity while wrestling with the darkness surrounding her? And most importantly, what would it cost her to become the very woman she had envisioned? Reclaiming her life, emboldened, Sarah straightened her spine, every instinct sharpened for the impending challenges. This was her moment of fresh beginning from which she wouldn't shy away. The culmination of her fears and the raw potential waiting to be harnessed surged within her, but as she moved forward, a nagging thought lingered at the edge of her mind: who would she become when the dust settled, and would the cost of such transformation be too steep to bear? With every beat of her heart, Sarah embraced the weight of her purpose as she plunged deeper into the world she had once feared. The alley around her hummed with secrets, laughter, and danger. But Sarah was no longer the woman defined by despair, she was a force, resolute and unwavering. The mission before her was about more than rescuing Lily, it was about seizing her life back from the grasp of fear and powerlessness. The gang outlined their plan with precise detail, outlining scenarios and contingencies that kept Sarah on her toes. Each moment spent in their presence brought an uncomfortable but undeniable thrill. She watched and absorbed, feeling energy bubbling within her, a surge of hope igniting every cell in her body. She wasn't simply gathering intel for her daughter, she was transcending the confines of her modest existence. As adrenaline pumped through her veins, Sarah demonstrated sharp instincts. She navigated the conversations with confidence, casting aside every limiting belief that once held her back. The men began to treat her with a respect she hadn't anticipated. They shifted from skeptical evaluations to nods of respect as she contributed insights on their intel. With every shared piece of information, Sarah solidified her foundation within the gang, allowing them to see her for what she was becoming, an equal and an ally. Then came a pivotal moment, a lead that could crack the entire operation wide open. A rival gang was rumored to be the tip of the iceberg regarding Lily's whereabouts. They had something to prove, and Sarah could smell their vulnerability from a mile away. "We can use them," she declared, her voice steady, before laying out a plan to leverage their prior associations. She had transformed from a desperate mother to a strategist, and every word tasted of empowerment. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Sarah stared down the precipice of actual confrontation. Her mission had reached a point of no return. Against a backdrop of darkness, Sarah steeled herself, tucking fear deep into her pocket. With a gang at her back, she moved toward the rival territory, a location where shadows whispered secrets beneath a veil of crime. This date would be the crucible that drew her into the essence of her newfound identity. The confrontation progressed in a heady mix of tension and exhilaration. She found herself standing before men who wanted to overshadow their worlds with chaos, but Sarah had power anchored deep within her resolve. "I'm not afraid of you," she announced, feeling the words leave her mouth like a binding spell. As she spoke, she felt an internal shift reverberate through the gathering. The enemy blinked as they recognized a force they didn't anticipate. The air thickened with silent anticipation, and Sarah seized the moment, stepping into a newfound individuality. The gang whispered, acknowledging her grit and determination. When the rival gang members retreated, surprised and unnerved, Sarah knew she had made her claim. The tipping point was tangible. They were no longer shadows to her, they were obstacles she learned to navigate. Victory surged through her as she shared information gleaned from that encounter with her newfound allies. In that transformative space, she wasn't just another player in someone else's game, she was forging her own fate. As weeks passed, it seemed that every move she made resonated further into her identity. Sarah walked a line she had never ventured before, filled with bravery, purpose, and newfound wisdom. A community she once believed was helpless began to change, trust rippled through the neighborhood as they witnessed her tenacity. She held discussions in the diner, outstretching her voice like a lighthouse guiding lost souls home. The dynamic shifted as people rallied behind her, not to expect change but to become agents of it. When she finally faced the man who had harmed Lily, standing firm amidst the chaos of emotions, it wasn't mere fear that coursed through her veins. It was righteous fury fueled by the innumerable battles she had fought to reclaim both her daughter and herself. Sarah stepped forward, exposing hidden truths along with her resilience. "A mother's love isn't a weakness," she declared boldly. The truth contained an undeniable strength, a power ignited by the darkness she had faced together with her daughter. In time, the town began to heal, starting with her own heart and mind. She restored Lily's innocence and drew her daughter into the world she was steadily reshaping. When the community began recognizing Sarah's unrelenting courage, it was no longer the perception of a waitress dissipating but that of a redefined woman, a leader anchored in authenticity. As she gathered with townsfolk in their diner, laughter and hope filling the air, the journey she had navigated became increasingly clear. Sarah had clashed with the shadows not just as a mother but as the fierce individual she had always aspired to be. She reclaimed her identity. It wasn't merely escape, it was about building her own story where strength ballooned exceptionally. With Lily nestled by her side, Sarah felt the weight lift off her shoulders. The path had not been simple, but it was here she stood, unwavering and proud, finally living the life she once thought unattainable. And in that moment, surrounded by a community united in authenticity, Sarah understood she had not merely conquered the chaos, she had transformed the entirety of her existence, securing her place as a resilient force within the world. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm, it really makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us keep sharing the light of transformation.